Hello, folks. Dan Kroll here, September 4th, 2024. Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. This is episode 113, the first one I've done in about a month, so I'm excited to get this thing rolling again. Have two guests on with me tonight. They must have called each other because they're wearing the exact same shirts that the Alumni Association put together this year, and I'm wearing one of the Brit ones as well. So should be a good night. Of course, I have Cliff Howlett and Dave Howlett. These two brothers, excuse me, combined to win three state titles, a runner-up, a third-place finish, a fourth-place finish, and a fifth-place finish on the wrestling mat for Al De Leon and Britt High School. So welcome to these two guys, Cliff and Pat, or Cliff and Dave, sorry, Pat Howlett. He was talking about his wife Pat's Facebook page, so Pat was on my mind. Sorry, Dave. Yeah, I'm off to a great start here. Yeah, podcast would not be possible without my sponsors. I have 25 of them tonight. I tried about 8 times, restarted my computer a bunch to get a new background on my screen. This is from the last episode, so a few sponsors aren't sponsoring this tonight, and a few that should be on there aren't on there. I apologize, but I'm going to read through them so they get their recognition, like always. So my sponsors tonight, I have Nick Schmidt, Trulson Auto Parts, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, Mojo Productions, Daniel's Auto Collision, Swenson's Hardware, Jeff and Becky Nielsen, Kelly Real Estate, Cartee Care Transportation in Kanawha, the Kanawha Community Home, Diemer Realty, Stevens Realty, Lehmann Family Dental in Clear Lake, Zach Schleuger, Britt Food Center, Britt Seed Company, the Britt Vet Clinic, Easiwash Cleaning Systems in Clear Lake, and Brent Hagen are my regular, just episode by episode sponsors. And my lifetime sponsors who gave $400 to cover every episode I'll ever do. I have Levi Don Trucking, Window World in Mason City, Doug and Kathy Zool, Pritchard's Auto, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, and Triple B's Food Trucks owned by Brett Kozlerich down here in central southern Iowa. So thank you to all those sponsors as well. That money, if you're wondering, goes all to the Sanger Legacy Fund to honor Bob and Linda Sanger. We help pay for the West Hancock Hall of Fame. We give scholarships to graduating seniors. We support any athletic or activity funds that are in need at any given time, any community outreach program. If you want to sponsor the podcast, get a hold of me, Dan Kroll. Or if you just want to give to the Legacy Fund, you can go to sangerstrong.com. Be money well spent and put in a good place. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, as of this recording, September 4th, we are just 2 nights away from the Hall of Fame event. September 6th, the honorees will be recognized at halftime of the Belmont football game. And then directly after the game, roughly 9:30 or so, we will go to the Britt Golf Course and have an induction ceremony. Food will be available for about the first 150 people. We do ask that we let the inductees and their families have first dibs at eating and some spots up front. But everyone's welcome to join us, whether you're out at the bar area or find a spot inside the back room. Standing room only is great as well. We want as many people out there as possible to honor those people. We have Linda Sanger, Jeff Stevenson, Mark Stevenson, John Weiland, the 1956 Brit wrestling team, and then 2 combination teams since they had so many similar members. The 1961 and 62 Brit wrestling teams, and then the 1978 and 1979 Kanawha boys track teams are all going into the Hall of Fame. So make sure you get out there. It's going to be a great night. It's always my favorite night of the year. My favorite thing that I helped with. So all right, way back when, 50 episodes ago, on episode 63, I talked to Coach Brian Bennion, who I'm going to see this Saturday at the Dave Fink Memorial Golf Outing. That's another worthy thing to give your money to is the Dave Fink Foundation. Great former teacher from West Hancock, passed away far too young. And 100 episodes ago, episode 13 was the 1980 Girls State Championship basketball team. So I'll have those linked on my social media posts. Make sure you check those out or just go to YouTube and find them yourself. That'd be great. Last thing I want to do is I want to take a quick second here and honor a staple of the Brit community who passed away this last week. I think it was Friday or Saturday of last week. Vivian Wellick Pritchard passed away at the age of 88. We all know the Pritchard name with the dealership, just such a nice lady. Her and her husband Bill, just staples of the community. Kids grandkids grew up in the community there at Britt. Just talked to Viv at the alumni banquet a couple weeks ago. And just a nice lady. So I wanted to send our thoughts and prayers and our condolences out to the Pritchard family at this time. So, all right, fellas, I talked too much. It's your turn. Let's start real quick with some introductions. Tell us which one you are, where you're living these days, what's keeping you busy, and how things are going. Dave, let's start with you.
Hello, my name's Dave Howlett. It's great to be on here with Dan Kroll on the podcast. I love Britt. I love West Hancock athletics. This is a great thing that Dan's doing and to honor the Bob Sanger legacy. So I encourage people to get involved. Once I graduated in 1974 from Britt, I went on to Mankato State, and that's where Al DeLeon went to college. My wrestling coach was Rummy Macias. I got a degree in industrial technology, both for teaching and coaching endorsement. In wrestling, I wrestled as a true freshman at 142. I set the freshman dual meet win record, and the next year Brent Hagen broke it when he came, and he ended up being a national champ before he moved on to UNI to get up be a national runner-up. And then I graduated from Mankato State, not quite making my goal. I was one move, one match away. You know how that goes from All-American. They only recognized the top 6 back in '78. The next year they went to the top 8. So if I would have graduated a year later, maybe I would have made it, but just short. I went to teach at Clear Lake, Iowa, assistant wrestling coach, middle school industrial arts. Then I moved on to Waseca, Minnesota, head wrestling coach, high school industrial arts, brought the team to state, first time in dual meet history for Waseca. Had a pretty good team there. Taught there for 2 years, got laid off. Both my roommate and I laid off, so I went back to school at Mankato, worked my master's. I was a grad assistant under Rummy Macias. Met my wife, so it was a good thing, a good move. And then I took a job at Ballard High School in Huxley from 83 to 80. Started the first year was 83, 84. And then I recently retired in 2013 after 30 years at Ballard. Then I continue on with my concession business. I started when I was about 15 or 16 with the old Howlett popcorn wagon, snow cones, later on cotton candy nachos. And then for about 25 years, I did pork chops and a stick, ribeye steak sandwiches, burgers, nachos. Hobo Days was a big event, and my hometown of Huxley, big event that we always did. So when I retired, I got really involved in that. I worked for about 8 years with Carl Chevrolet delivering parts. Now I'm fully retired. And first question everyone asks me, Dan, is, what do you do with all your time not retired? And my response is, what makes you think I need to do something all the time? I haven't finished your book yet. There's podcasts I need to get kept up on. There's some good TV shows I want to watch. We have a cottage at the lake, my wife and I, who've been married for 38 years. So we go up to Clear Lake, Iowa, most weekends. And I have a daughter and a granddaughter in Cave Creek, Arizona, next to Scottsdale, and a son in Denver area. So we try to get out to see them when we can. Otherwise, I'm just enjoying the married life. My wife's going to retire in a year, and I get back to Britt often. I was there for Hobo Days for our 50th class reunion, rode the float, and met a lot of classmates and friends and had a good time. So, and I love following the football, wrestling, and all the programs, but football and wrestling especially. I try to attend a few of those games and meets, and definitely the state tournament. So love going to the playoffs too. So that's where I'm at this point, Huxley, Iowa.
And it's funny you mentioned the book that you haven't finished reading it yet at Hobo Days. Ron Cook might have been involved, but I asked about 25 people, have you finished my book? Not a single person said they have read it from cover to cover yet. Like, it's a big book, so I get it, but waiting to find that first person that's read it cover to cover. So one of these days I'll find them. So
there you go.
Cliff, how about you? What are you up to these days? Where are you at?
Well, yeah. And first off, I want to say same thing, Dan. Thank you for doing this project and all the work you put into that book and you know, just those questionnaires and things you did for these guidelines. That's a lot of time you're devoting, and that's a wonderful thing to honor Bob Sanger and you know, the whole West Hancock system. I appreciate that. Anyway, yeah, after high school, I went to Drake University in Des Moines. And of course, well, I should say it, I had the first and only full scholarship that they gave at Drake. Had a good education there. The wrestling was so-so in terms of the program and coaching there, but had a lot of wonderful trips and a lot of good memories there. Maybe touch back later. And then I went on to get my master's degree. I went down to Central Missouri State in Warrensburg. I taught 5 years of school and coached. The first 2 were at Hampton, and was quite fun there. The head coach there was Bill Reap Simon from Britt. And I listened to the podcast, Dan, that you had with him here a while back. Yeah, I didn't know all that. They had called him the Cinderella story. And that he came through and got second there at state and everything. He never talked about that, but he helped get me going on in the coaching arena there. And of course, I used a lot of my stuff that I got from De Leon in terms of how to run a program. So I 2 years there at Hampton, then I went up to Forest City, took a head job. Russell was only 5 years old there when I went, and it was a challenge. We had some good kids that placed down at state, second and thirds, but never had a champion. And so only after 5 years, I was teaching social studies. I had a nice job, but I was getting bored in the classroom, teaching that same thing 3-4 times a day. And can't remember if I said that or didn't say it. And so I moved on, even though I loved the coaching, moved on and went to work for IDS American Express as an investment advisor, and then changed companies. I did that for about 25 years and I moved to Algona, and then way back in 1985, my father died unexpectedly, and then I was driving over back to Britt to do the home farming here. And then I moved on to farm in 90 and been farming here since, and just retired this last year. And I still got stacks of paperwork from 2 years ago from farming I haven't got done, much less all the other things in that 30-year list that I want to start doing, but we'll get there.
Who's farming the land you were farming at this point?
Yeah, it's a century farm, 130 years. My 2 nephews, my youngest brother, Kurt, his oldest boy, Robbie, and then his brother, Aaron, help out. And they have a nice new shop out here and run a trucking business off the farm here also.
Cool.
That's how they afford to farm, do that trucking.
Yeah. It's cool. You can keep that in the family, the century farm. That's pretty neat.
Yes, you bet.
I was going to mention this to you guys. You're about this era, so I had to take my son to urgent care this afternoon. He's had a nasty cough for a couple weeks, got some virus, can't shake it. And I'm wearing this Britt shirt, and the receptionist at urgent care in Osceola goes, "Are you from Britt?" And I said, "Oh, here we go." Always makes me excited because I'm making the connections.
Yeah.
And she goes, "My grandparents are from Britt, but they've been gone since like the early 90s. I'm like, "Well, who's that?" I told her what I do. I do a lot of research. She goes, "Fred and Ruby Scobie." Do you remember the Scobies who owned the bar? Oh, I had it in my phone. The Camp Cabin or something like that. Do you remember that?
Cabin camps.
Cabin.
The cabin camp.
Cabin camp. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
she was asking me questions about people, and she goes, "I grew up in Algona," and said, "Well, I'm doing a podcast in a couple hours with these brothers. Their last name's Howlett." And she goes, "Weren't they good wrestlers?" They were pretty decent. Yep. So just I love making those small town fun connections. I'm always meeting people. Drives my wife crazy. She goes, "Please just let's keep
Yeah.
going." So
Well,
yeah,
I run into that all over the place. And I was just getting my oil change now going this afternoon. The guy, he lived in Burt, and then we were talking. He said, "Well, people confuse Burt with Britt. They say, oh, you got Hobotown and wrestling and now football." And so, yeah, the name's out there.
oh yeah, I love it. Never better than that. So this is going to be a wrestling heavy episode. But real quick here, I want to talk about other sports you guys competed in. Cliff, did you play other sports in high school? Were you strictly a wrestler? What's kind of your experience?
No, I'll start with the briefest thing. I went out, I played baseball in Little League all the time and liked it, but I helped out in the farm in the summer and so forth. But as a senior, I decided to go out for baseball and join my friends and teammates there, Corneisel and Dave Higdon and Stevenson. And, they found a spot for me out where I could do the least amount of damage. I got out in right field, and I could hit a ball once in a while. That's why I got to start there, I guess. But yeah, and then we had Coach Timmerman, a long time, like so many of our coaches, and it was fun to do that. Football, I had quite a bit of success at. I was a freshman when Coach Sanger came to Britt. And of course, as you're well aware, those first few years, we really struggled. And then as a sophomore, he wanted me to play on varsity, to play end. And I did a few games, but I said, Coach, I want to stay on fresh soft because we're more competitive. I'm with my classmates and we do a little bit of winning down there. We were getting blown away. So that was a sophomore year. My junior year, the opening scrimmage game at that time, we played alumni, some guys that graduated, and I don't remember where in the game it was, but I was playing middle linebacker, and I think it was Swaney. Ron Swaney come running through the middle and tackled him. But anyway, we must have hit heads. I was knocked out, for a moment, and then stood on the sidelines the rest of the time with a concussion, or sat on the bench, I should say. Next thing I know, I'm in the shower and saying, guys, what happened? Well, did we have a football game? I can't remember anything. And I loved football, but I'm a junior and I'd won state wrestling that year before, and I knew that's where my future was. And of course, I had a greater love there, and the success was under wrestling. So I told Coach, I guess I'm going to quit football and concentrate in the wrestling. And it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. Should have stayed in there. Yeah. Then I came back as a senior, and I don't think I missed a play, that whole season. I played, guard, and I played middle linebacker, and I was the deep punt receiver, kickoff receiver. So they had me going all the time, and that was great fun. Our team was so undersized. Like, I was the right side guard. The tackle next to me was Dan Kohlsdorf, 138-pound wrestler. And, that's pretty small for a tackle, but it was fun. The two of us could still blow open a hole there, and we had fun doing that. But the defense soon figured that out, and they put extra linebacker there and closed that down.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't do very well, but we had a lot of fun, and the camaraderie on the team was super. My highlight of that season was our game at Forest City. And we either won one or two games that year. I can't remember if we won that one, the last one, Garner. But that Forest City game, I think we were behind 27-0 at halftime. And Coach Sanger comes out with what he called the spread eagle offense, brand new. And they had like 4 receivers spread out, way out to the sidelines, and a couple other people. The defense had no idea what to do. Well, anyway, we just passed the crap out of that ball, and we ended up winning like by 2 points, 29-27. And then, as I said earlier, later in my career, I taught school at Forest City, and that head football coach, Larry Holstead, every time we'd be at a party, he'd give me heck and say, well, Cliff, I just about got fired, from my job over that game. You guys come back and kicked us. And so anyway, that was fun to pull that off. And I can't remember if Stevenson or Higdon or both of them were flinging the passes that night, but that was a good game.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, without getting too windy. Yeah.
So that was probably Jeff Stevenson throwing around. Again, I'm going to plug the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yes, he is.
He's coming in from Atlanta, Georgia for the Hall of Fame event. He's coming. So
you bet.
That'll be pretty exciting.
Well,
make sure you get out there. Dave, you, uh, you and your buddies just decided to rack up some hardware in your day. In wrestling, your teams won state in 71, 72, 73. You were state runner-ups in 74. Football, you guys won state in 73, and in 1974, you guys won the track and field state title. I know we're going to get to wrestling here in a little bit, but talk about football and track and winning those championships here.
All right. Well, oh boy, I'm sure glad I participated in the football and track. And my teammates had a lot to do with that, and some coaches I'll get into. But yeah, I pretty much hung around with my wrestling buddies up until I got involved in football. And they said, Dave, we're going to have something special going on. So I was in football junior high, and I think we're undefeated in 8th grade, I'm pretty sure. And freshman year, you know, I played some on freshman team, JV team. And then I concentrated on wrestling. And I wanted to be a state champ. I wanted to follow my brother and all these other people. And John Hagen, Cliff Howlett, and Bruce Gaken, and all the ones before that, Dwayne Grant and others. And I kind of regret it, but I wasn't very big. I wrestled at 119 and 26 myself in junior year. So I concentrated on wrestling. But that into the wrestling season, Rod Meyer and Bob Sanger both approached me, and they says, Dave, you know, you want to win another state title in wrestling, and we're going to have a heck of a team in football and track. And it says, you'd make a great defensive end in football, even though my senior year I was only about 148 pounds. So I did go out, and I'm sure glad I did because I was starting left defensive end. Jim Miller was the right defensive end. I was backup offensive end to Dave Roslick. I didn't get to play much because he did well, and Jim Diemer kept throwing the ball, and no, we didn't have too many injuries in football that senior year, so that really helped. But played a little bit of special teams also, and I should mention so I don't forget, Dan. I think one mistake in the book was it said something about Kurt Marting blocked the punt at the state championship game against Mount Vernon at Kinnick Stadium. That was me that blocked the punt, and Kurt Marting recovered it. That's what the paper said. And Ron Meyer, when I came off the field, go, way to go, Dave, way to get in there. So I'll never forget that. But maybe he got a piece of it too. But all I know is I felt pretty good about that, and it fired me up. But so much fun. Coach Sanger and Meyer, and just for not being that involved in football those previous years, and only being junior high and freshman, to get to start on a state championship team. And then I got to know the basketball guys too, which I wasn't that great friends with. We developed a friendship, which carried over into football. And then in track, I competed in junior high, and then I went out that junior year thinking, okay, stay in shape for wrestling and less chance of getting hurt because I still wasn't very big. So I did fairly well. I ran the half mile and mile. And this is one thing I'll never forget about Bob Sanger, because I was behind some great runners. Doug Poop's probably the best, one of the best in the state of Iowa, period, both junior and senior years. And him and I both were pretty good with half mile. It's 800 meters now, of course, but half mile back then. And so knowing Doug would be the main guy in the open half, he put me in the mile. Anyway, I got third, but he also ran me in a relay only a few minutes before that mile. And so I usually have a pretty good kick, and you need to get in the top two to go on the state. I was just not far at all, a few feet, maybe 5 yards from getting second. And I remember shortly after that, Bob came to me and says, Dave, boy, you ran your heart out. So proud of you. And I wish I would have held you from that relay, because we had the title wrapped up, I think, anyway. And he wanted to get as many individuals as he could to state. And I said, "Go, that's all right. That's not my specialty anyway. And I'm just glad to compete with the guys, having a good time, and just keep me in shape." So I was fine. And then my senior year, I took it a little more seriously, and I said, you know what? Especially since I didn't win that state title, I want to go out with a bang. And so I got to be on that state championship team, runner up my junior year, state as a senior, but I got to contribute as a senior. So I ran the half it's called the 2 mile relay. So I was second leg. Dave Roslick handed off to me. I handed off, and then Doug Pooch anchored it. And Doug, he was the man. Oh boy, I tell you, he was setting record after record. So we set a state record on that in state. And then I was put in as the anchor in the mile medley. And so I ended with that half mile, and we got fifth in state. That was also a school record. Only we had some really good teams up against at state. So that was quite the experience. And I got to share one story, but also I want to hope this is an okay time to do it. Dave Roslick, who got to be a good friend of mine, along with Doug Pooch on the relays, he knew I wasn't all that crazy about track because Sanger worked our butts off, and I wanted to run to stay in shape, but I didn't want to do it where he's just killing me off, you know? So anyway, we had one practice that we're trying to prepare for districts and state. And we ran like, I don't know how many, like 8 220s or something. And I'm not a sprinter, but he just told me to run. And I was so dang tired after those, I couldn't even talk. It was like Clark W. Griswold in Christmas Vacation, where the daughter has her lips frozen from going out and get the Christmas tree. You know, I was just like, and I said something like, I don't like it. Like, you know, I don't like it. I couldn't even talk. I was so tired. And I was just kind of laying by the bleachers, but you know, it paid off because I got to be a part of the state championship team, and then state championship in that relay team, and then fifth in the mile medley. So I thank my teammates and the coaches for encouraging me to do that. And I wanted to mention about Dave. He could use prayers for him and his family and the wife Lorna. I don't know if you heard his son Seth Roslick just passed away in his sleep, I think 3 nights ago. The visitations now as we speak, and the funeral's tomorrow morning at the historic surf ballroom. And I don't know if you know the background of him, but he was the job superintendent for the surf ballroom new addition, that brand new music enrichment center and all the upgrades around the surf ballroom. And they put up, if you go to the surf around Clear Lake this weekend, they put up a big billboard on the surf ballroom about Seth Roslick, and a nice quote about how much he just loved people and how they loved him. And he's such a loving, generous man. So my heart goes out to Dave and Lorna Roslick, losing their son just a few nights ago.
Yep, definitely. Yep,
Yeah.
saw that too, and I assumed it was that connection. I saw the Roslick name. So
Yeah, that was football and track is where I gained that, along with Doug Pooch and some others, and of course the star football players that weren't wrestlers too. You know, I got to know those guys. It was a lot of fun. And when we have class reunions, I spent about 4 hours at the old fire station with a lot of these football and track buddies for our 50th class reunion Hoba days. And then we had, I believe, 76 in our class. And I think 29 showed up for the reunion at the fire station, and probably 21 or 22 on the float for Hoba Day parade. So great turnout, a lot of fun.
yep, definitely. Yep, good times. All right, let's get to some wrestling here. I'm hoping that this is brother episode, so I'm hoping there's some razzing going on throughout the episode. I'll just put that bug in your ear here. Cliff, you're a little bit older, so let's start with you and work our way kind of chronologically through the seasons of wrestling here. Your freshman year, you didn't make it out of sectionals. You went 1-2. The meet was held in Britt. Lost to Rob Dorr from Belmont in the first round. That set you back from going to districts. But then we'll talk here in a second. Your sophomore year, you won a state title. So how did that experience as a freshman help you prepare for that title season?
If you don't mind, I want to make a mention on something on football here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, well, and then in the track, and yeah, I was like Dave. I mean, I did track in junior high. I didn't like running, and I thought running was only good to get into shape for wrestling, you know, or
And lose weight.
but on the football, I might blow my horn just a little there. I did, as that senior said, I was playing all positions all the time, and did get honorable mention all conference that year. And even though I missed that last game because I had an injury, I missed the Garner game, which kind of sucked. And in a couple of games there, at that time, they told me I had the most sacks and most tackles as of date. And I think in particular tackles, we had Northwood and Lake Mills, and my other middle linebacker, Dave Brave, was out with injury. So I was by myself in middle linebacker really, and maybe we played 6-3. I can't remember what defense, but anyway, so they had a real good running back at Northwood, you know, and then of course Lake Mills had the Stenders boys.
Yep.
Great big horses, you know, 275 pounds. They both went on to Iowa State and all pro. And, you know, I had a lot of tackles, but they would still drag me 5 yards, you know, before we could get them down. Somebody else had to help. So that was kind of another memory in terms of football. So back into wrestling then. Ninth grade, backing up half a step, 8th grade, I was undefeated. I'm going to back up a little bit more now that I think about it. Grade school PE tournaments. Jerry Nayland was our instructor, and he started, I think, when De Leon came, had this idea. We had probably about 3 weeks of instruction on wrestling in PE class. Then we had a little grade school tournament. I think that started when I was in 5th grade, and that was my start to wrestling, and I loved it. Another little tidbit, I can't remember what year, it was around that very same time frame, but one of the assistant coaches that come to Britt, Ken Fuchs, and later on was at Manly a long time and very successful coach. We have 2 houses out the farm, and he rented that smaller house that the grandparents used to have for a short while, you know, half a season or half a year, I don't know. But anyway, I remember going over there and asking him, can you show me a few moves, and you know, messed around with that. And that was pretty neat. And we would talk about that in later years. You know, back in that day, they didn't have any of these little kids tournaments anywhere. You know, basically you didn't get any wrestling done until junior high. So junior high, I was undefeated. You know, not very many matches, of course, but I had Ron Meyer as a coach, and just a great coach, and got us fired up. And, you know, amazing how organized he was, you know, because practice was during a school hour or school day, and it was like 1 hour. You had to get showered and ready and do everything in that time frame. And we got it done, and he got us all off to a great start. And of course, a great assistant under De Leon while I was there. So as a freshman, I remember I was on varsity about half the time. Had tough tryouts with Danny Smith, several years older, and then come sectional time, Jim Nielsen, I think, cut down a lot of weight to get down to 127. We had tryouts, best 2 out of 3. We had the mat out, and we had it out in the gym. And I was able to pull off the 2 wins on him. And that's, you know, thank goodness to my deep waist ride. I could wrap it on him and keep him down. But he was a good wrestler, and sectionals, you know, ended up getting 3rd, but didn't really have the confidence at that point, you know, to do the best. But I do remember I took a lot of pride in not getting pinned. I can remember we wrestled East Waterloo. They come to town, and the gym would be packed. You know, people were literally hanging from the rafters outside. They'd have people standing around the mat out in the hallways, totally full. And I had a black wrestler, and he was a state champion. I think his name was Farmer. And he beat the crap out of me. I mean, like 19-3, probably let me go several times. But I would not let him pin me because, you know, back then it was 3 for decision, 6 for pin, and that was it. And so, yeah, that was my freshman year. Sophomore year, I definitely had a lot more confidence and had more skills. But it's the weirdest year. I mean, if you look at I'll just say this, and I can't remember if I had some injuries or why, but going into sectional tournament, my record, Dan, was 8-4-3. Those 4 losses and 3 ties, which we had it back in that time, were to 3 guys. I mean, I lost like 2 and 3 times, and each time I kept trying to do a Kelly or a fireman and didn't really know how to do it very good. Each time I do it in that first period, I get behind either 4 or 5-0, and then had to try to come back and win, and I did not. And all those kids were state placers from Algona and Clarion. Lang from Algona, Blackman from Clarion, and there's Cooper from Clear Lake. Yeah, he was a state placer too. Well, anyway, we get to sectional tournament. I don't know why coach didn't hit me in the head with a 2x4, knocked some sense into my head, but sectionals were at Britt. And what do? Go out there and do the same blasted thing in the first round, in the second round. And I think, I don't know if we had 3 rounds. We did have 3 rounds. Maybe we had to buy the first round. But anyway, I got behind 4 and 5-0 again. And both times I came back, hit a side roll. Both matches, got a 4 or 5 point move, and ended up winning that sectional. Went on to district. Did I win district? I can't even remember.
Let me see. District meet was in Humboldt. As a team, we got 4th.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
you
must
and
have
John
won
Hagen
that
won
then.
the district titles. Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that makes me think. There was a fan, Daryl Euling. He's a farmer, closer to Kanawha than Britt here. But I can remember between those tournaments, somewhere he ran to me uptown and said, "Cliff, you got to quit doing that Kelly move. Just do your good single leg," because I had a good single leg. And I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And so at districts, no Kelly, just straight fireman or like a straight single leg. And yeah, that's right. I walked through that, went down to state. Oh yeah, state tournament. So yeah, it was just me and John Hagen that qualified, and we both were first. And back then, there were 8 kids that went to state, and 4 kids would place. And it was a 2-day tournament, Friday, Saturday. And Friday night, there's a snowstorm coming in. And so I'm tucked into bed, and I don't remember, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. My parents wake me up and said, "Coach DeLeon called. He's on the way to pick you up. And they're going to head down to Waterloo. The old McElroy Auditorium was where the meet was held. Last year they had it there. Well, anyway, they come to my place, and Coach DeLeon left his car, or a school car. I suppose it was just his personal car. I don't know, and took my dad's station wagon. We had 7 kids here. And so John and I, with that station wagon, folded it down, and the 2 of us slept in the back as we drove down to Waterloo. And, we went on to win that. But there were some teams in Northwest Iowa that never made it to the tournament because of that snowstorm. So thank goodness DeLeon was on top of things and got us there.
Do you know, Cliff? So let's say a team from Northwest Iowa doesn't make it. Is it just a forfeit? Do they restructure the bracket? How'd they make that work?
It was just a forfeit then. I didn't have any in my bracket, but I know there were several teams that didn't make it.
Oh, that would stink. So yeah, let's look at your state meet. It was in Waterloo, like you said, before Des Moines got it every year. John Hagen, 95-pound John Hagen, won the state title. 9-2 win over a kid from Corning, 1-0 win over a kid from Marion. And then in the finals, he beat Kelly Bast from Urbandale 4-2. And then you were at 133 pounds. In the first round, you beat Lynn Applegate of Sigourney 6-3. In the semis, you beat Dan Reese of Anamosa 2-0. And in the finals, 9-2 win against Tom Steffen from LaPorte City. You didn't get out of sectionals your freshman year. Almost didn't get out of sectionals your sophomore year. Follow that guy's advice on the street. Win districts, win state. Talk about. Yeah. You were, what I put in my notes, you were like the 21st state champion in school history.
Okay. I mean, so I had that lousy 8-4-3 record
Yeah.
going into sectional tournament. But I knew all those losses and ties were to state qualifiers. I said, if I didn't do that stupid Kelly, I would beat them all. I could have been just well been undefeated
Yeah.
that season. So I had the confidence. I got to state tournament then. I looked at those guys' records, 32-0, 28. I mean, holy Moses, didn't bother a bit. I said, I was all business, went out there, took them down, put that deep waist on them, write them out. Had no doubt that I was going to walk through and win that thing. And it went real well for me. And of course, very exciting, just the two of us being champions was enough to make fourth place as a team.
Yeah.
And, and then next year we got second as a team and then first as a team for my 3 years, third state. But, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I was just getting ready to highlight that. Think about this. I don't remember 68, 69, fourth place, 70 state runner-up, 71, 72, 73 state champions, 74, 75 state runner-ups. Like that is just a phenomenal run that our program went on. That
Yeah.
6-7 year stretch, whatever it was. Holy cow. That's just
Yes, it was.
pretty fun. And to do that fourth place with two guys, that's pretty impressive. So
Yeah.
So
Dave,
amazing. That was so cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dave,
I
you were
remember
in
one
middle
year-
school. Oh, sorry, Cliff, go ahead.
No, around 1980, Clarion won state tournament with 3 state champions. That's all they had.
Jeez.
And it was enough points the way things worked out.
Yep.
You can't do that today. These teams come down with, 10 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Track, you can do that still. We've seen teams win state titles with 1 or 2 athletes competing, but yeah, it's just crazy. So, Dave, you were in middle school at the time. Talk about watching
Yes.
your brother win a state title. How did this motivate you to hopefully get to that point sometime?
I was so darn excited. I wanted to be like my big brother. I wanted to be like all these other guys ahead of me. And I don't know if you saw pictures. This is before your time, obviously, but you probably saw pictures. But Britt High School really promoted their athletes. And the wrestling had a lot of tradition, kind of like football has now, where there's pictures and pictures and trophies and trophies. And you just couldn't walk anywhere without being reminded of how strong wrestling was in Britt.
Mhm.
And then if you read up about the Bob Steely's era and Chuck Conway and Dave Grant and all these other guys, before Cliff and I winning state titles, you couldn't help but get motivated. And when Ron Meyer came, and I don't know if you knew this, but Ron Meyer, as far as I know, never wrestled before, maybe PE class, but he didn't wrestle in high school or college. And Al Deon was okay with that. He went to college up for Iowa, and they had pretty good wrestling back in the day. I think that's where Bob Stanger went to college also. But so Coach De Leon could teach him everything he wanted. And he was really receptive. Great teacher, great coach. And he knew how to show it, how to pass it on. And he was so compassionate and caring with those younger kids. Because other than like Cliff said, the only wrestling you got was a little bit from Nayland in PE class elementary. And then I think when I was in elementary, I think we got to go 4th, 5th, and 6th. And so that's all the background you got. But you saw the writing on the wall that if you want to get good, follow their footsteps, start learning. And yeah, I tried to read everything I could. I tried to watch meets, and they started becoming on Iowa public television, with Iowa State and all that. And I just soaked it all in. And, Cliff and I, growing up, my poor mom and dad just kind of let us go, but we broke a lot of furniture in the living room. And we had a lot of fun doing it, and we're out of carpet. I can't remember if there was holes in the walls, but yeah, it's amazing we didn't get hurt because we didn't have much padding other than carpet. And then a little bit later, we got an old wrestling mat down in the basement where I think, about junior high, we had that. And so I started wrestling there. But yeah, I wanted to get my name on the wall in the gym. De Leon had all the state champs listed, name, weight, year. I wanted to go up there. So every time we ran the bleachers, and I'll see the mayor of Clear Lake, Crab Nielsen. He was a junior high wrestling coach when I was assistant wrestling in Clear Lake 7980. I'll see him down in the park activities, and he'll remind me all the time how, yeah, De Leon, no wonder why you guys are so in shape and good. You always ran the gym and you ran the bleachers with sandbags that Lois De Leon would sew, and we wore sandbags in the bleachers in the gym. Then we'd go to elementary school on weekends, and we'd run the halls, go up the steps and do it again, and then maybe we'd hit the pool for some nice relaxing exercise. But we were well conditioned, well trained, and just watching those guys, you'd learn. And then you have Coach De Leon and Meyer fine tune the technique. And then they, De Leon came from good stock, and his brothers, and 3-time state champ at Blue Earth. And he wrestled for Army Maces, who was a Big Ten champ at Iowa a couple of times and then placed at Iowa. And, De Leon went on to wrestle Mankato State and got the background. And like Cliff said earlier, when I was coaching at Clear Lake, especially when I was head coach at Ballard High School and then Waseca, I took what I learned from De Leon and was able to convey that to kids. Everything down from like the handbook, some of the rules, the pre-game meal, after weigh-in meal, even trying to encourage them to take naps because you had a long lag between weigh-ins, which is unheard of now. Now you're waiting like a half hour before the meets. Mm-hmm. So, it was so fun. And I was successful in junior high. I won a couple of the elementary things, 5th and 6th. I know I was undefeated in 8th grade up until the last duel against Hampton. And I was so bummed because my heroes, Colstor, Swenson, Cliff, and a few others, that were like juniors, they came out of practice maybe a little bit early, all sweaty and still trying to lose weight. So they're running in place, but they're watching all the junior high kids. And I thought that's pretty cool. And I'm doing great. I was going to finish undefeated. First time I got pinned all the way through junior high. And then it only happened one other time in high school. And I'll share that story later on. But so I was only pinned twice in my life and took a lot of pride in that. But it was such a motivator. And like even now, thanks to the foundation that De Leon and Meyer left and all the wrestlers before me, and Cliff had Ken Fuchs helping a little bit at the house on the farm. I remember Chuck Conway. Maybe you remember this too, Cliff. He was a 2-time state champ, I believe, in was it the 60s, early 60s?
56, 57.
Okay. Anyway, so I was born in 56, but later on, and he would come to our house and he got to be friends from my mom and dad and went to the same church. Right. He would show me technique in the old wrestling mat in the basement. And just little things about hand control, tighten up the grip on the cradle, trying to break out in the 2-on-1. And so, and De Leon was great with that, but sometimes just another set of eyes watching, just like Cliff's Cali thing. You're so busy with all the team, someone else that's been there, done that, won a couple of titles to share that knowledge with me. It was so cool. And then the other thing, I get us tell, I wanted to be a part of that fun. You'd walk around town, you go to church, and everything, especially after a big duel against Algona, Eagle Grove, Clarion, or you win a sectional district title, or you come home from state with a state title replacing. The team was just so behind you, and they would talk to you, and I don't know if it was legal, but they wanted to buy you a meal or a pop or something. I think it was legal. That's probably just college where you could, but. It was an exciting time, and it just really motivated me, and I couldn't wait to get on the team. And Cliff and John and those guys are going to be seniors in 71, so I was really looking forward to that.
You guys mentioned Britt promoting its athletes and its athletics and its sports teams and everything else. I wanted to highlight something that I got the privilege of doing this summer. Well, Dave, you pretty much won half of these trophies as it is, but all the trophies at the high school there's so many. I think we're up to like 47. That's the number that pops up. State runner-up, state champion team trophies in that building right now. They're kind of scattered throughout those trophy cases, and so I asked the school with my gig as kind of the sports information director, whatever I'd call myself, can I get these things a little more organized and uniform? So they said, have at it. If you're willing to put in the work, go for it. So I took every trophy out of that case this summer, and that new case that's in between the visiting and home stands to go into the gym that the Kelly family donated. as the visiting fans are walking by, all I was thinking was promoting West Hancock, promoting Britt. That first set of trophy case area, state semifinal football, state championship golf. The next one, I have all 5 state football titles lined up side by side by side by side. Then the runner-ups under that. The next one is all the basketball state trophies. The next one is all the track state trophies for runner-up and champs. And then at the very end, I specifically did this. People are going to be like, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. I said, you haven't even gotten to the best section yet, and that's our wrestling section. So I'm a firm believer, just like you guys said, promote, make this look as good as possible. So I had a blast touching all those trophies, organizing them, putting them in places. And then on the other side is all the conference title stuff, and then the rest of the football trophies and some others that needed to be put somewhere on that other opposite side. So that,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's so fun to promote what we have and what we're still doing. It's really neat to continue the legacy. So
Yeah, yes, it is.
I like to reiterate that story that Dave told. Them wall plaques up there meant them out to me. And backing up half a step, when I was a kid, my older sisters were cheerleaders, and mom probably wanted me out of the house. They would take me up to the basketball and wrestling meets. I was 4th grade, 3rd grade, I don't know what. And I got to see these old time, Bob Steenlich and Gunther and Birchka and Vacic and I don't know, and Lloyd. Yeah, it was so fun. And then, yeah, same thing, them wall plaques, that motivated me a lot. I said, I want my name up there. And I agree 100%. When we did them sandbags and that running, that was not fun, but I'd say, okay, it's worth it. That's what I'm trying to do. Get my plaque up there. So that was a pretty cool thing we had going there. Yeah. And yeah.
all right, let's keep moving here. Cliff, junior year, you're the defending state champion. As a team, we were 2nd at sectionals, 3rd at districts, and we already talked about that 1970 team with state runner-ups. You, John Hagen, Dwayne Dawn were sectional champions. You won your matches 4-2 and 5-2. At districts, we went to Clarion. You didn't leave with the district title. You lost in the finals to, gotta go to the next page here. Russ Paulson of Clarion, 6-5. Talk about that 6-5 loss to Paulson from Clarion, and then the Bill Biter 2-1 win in the wrestleback just to get to state.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Russ Paulson, I guess I would kind of call him, he turned into kind of being my arch rival. I'd beaten him in the dual meet earlier that year. And in that match, I got stupid. I was underneath and I just hated to have somebody ride me out. And, we kept going up, standing up and off the mat and so on and so forth. I couldn't quite break the hands of break free. I tried to do a forward roll, an awkward Grammy roll, and I really didn't know how to do it properly. And, the referee called 2 points, said he held me there for the 2nd count. And he got an ear fall. That's how I lost that match, which, shouldn't have happened. But it did. Just me being too aggressive, wanting to get away and doing something I really wasn't good at. The wrestleback, I mean, I was obviously pretty darn bummed. I know, stomping out of that gym and not happy with myself or, really beating myself. And the wrestleback, I really don't remember. I won, probably just did enough, got a takedown. That guy got an escape. I don't know. Yeah, moved on past that. And it didn't really shake my confidence because, yeah, I knew I had made a mistake and just had to win to get back down to state. So.
Yep. And then going down to state, Dwayne Dawn won a state title. This is 1970. A pin, a 7-0 decision, a 3-2 decision to win his title. John Hagen won another title, 4-0, 4-0, 4-0. He's a consistent wrestler, apparently. Then Jeff Stevenson lost in the first round, 1-0. You, Cliff, you beat Mark Linus from Independence 3-1 in the first round. In the semis, you lost to Eric Norris from Ankeny in 4 minutes 43 seconds, and then lost to Russ Paulson of Clarion again. And I didn't get a score, but they said it was a referee's decision. Talk about your junior year experience down at state.
Yeah. Oh, comment on John Hagen. Yeah. John Hagen would get a double leg takedown. He'd ride that deep waist the crap out of him. Second period, or whenever it was his turn to be down, he'd get a switch reversal, ride the crap out of him, 4-0 every time. He was like clockwork, very controlling, and would not take any risk. Did not get very many pins or near falls, but boy, he was a winner and he was solid. And of course, the story out of his dad, multiple state champion, and so he had a good early start. And we're sure happy that the Wally Hagen family moved to Britt from Clarion and got the grocery store job up there at We3 to help our teams. Yeah.
I did that podcast with those two a couple years ago now, and listening to those two brothers talk to each other, oh, that was a blast. This was 2021, 2022, whatever it was. Brent, I think, goes, I think I have one more match in me. And John turned and says, no, you don't. He was just, what are you talking about? It's been 50 years. So I had a blast listening to those two guys. So.
Yep. No, Dave and I are good friends with them both. We've gone fish with them, fished in Canada with John a couple years ago. And so, yeah, we can tell some old stories still. So let's see, where were we?
Not being able to defend your title that junior year.
Okay, down at state.
Dave, did you take it harder than him? How closely did you follow your brother's career at this point?
Okay.
Well, it was hard to see him. I obviously was, wanting him to do it again, and I'm glad he got it his senior year. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough to see.
Yeah. I'll give you a few details on that story here. On that semifinal match with Eric Norris Bank, and he went on to win state and then won it the next year. But I had a takedown first period, and he must have got an escape, as I recall, in that second period, and so we're in the third, and we were I'd stand up and go off the mat. And I said, okay, I'm ahead. I could get up, take him down. No, Dave, I'll just sit underneath. I'll just coast this thing out. And I'm down underneath. I've never told this story to Dave. I never told it to De Leon, to anybody besides John Hagen when we were up in Canada having a couple drinks late one night. I was looking over at the cheerleaders right on the mat side, and my head was thinking about women or a woman and associated thing. And I literally don't know what happened to this day. The referee tapped me on the shoulder and says, Cliff, the match is over. I says, what? I was pinned. He stepped over my head. I had my head down looking over their cheerleaders. He stepped over my head, put a figure 4 on. And only time in my career that I've been pinned.
Jeez.
And so here I go, blowing it again. And I hate to tell this story, because I don't want to make excuses, but that is the truth. And makes me think of Spencer Lee, excuses or for wusses, the national champ for Iowa. Well, almost makes me think of that song, Jimmy Buffett. Some people say a woman's to blame, but it's my own dang fault. I know it. I lost my concentration, and felt. I still have nightmares over that match, of being that. But I blew it. So Wrestlebacks. Me and Russ Paulson, my rival that beat me at the dish because I made a dumb move, we were expected to be in the finals. And I thought I'd get my revenge. Well, he gets beat unexpectedly. So we're wrestling for third and fourth. And it was a real tight match. And we ended up being tied in the regular period. I almost took him down about 5 times, kept going off the mat. And overtime, same thing. First period, I almost had several takedowns. The second period, I rode him almost the whole period, and then he got away. And so I get away in that third period. It's tied 1-1 still. And I thought in my head, well, I've won this for sure. I almost took him down a half a dozen times, go off the mat, and almost rode him out the whole period. Well, in those days, they had 2 coaches. They would come to the mat side, and then the referee out there. So they would have what they call a referee's decision. 3 of them vote. And, you know, the 2 mat judges were former assistant coaches there at Clarion. You know, they'd worked with the coach there at Clarion, Dale Brand. And once again, hate to be an excuse, but Dale on and multiple coaches around there were shocked to see how I did not win that match, but that's the way that call went. And so that one probably almost bothered me more than getting pinned, because yeah, I wanted my revenge on that mat, and I never got to do it.
How does a guy like Coach De Leon handle something like that? What does he say to you afterwards? How does he talk to the officials? Is he just is what it? I talk about that.
Yeah, De Leon and Meyer both said, "Well, Cliff, you won that match."
Yeah,
you know, and there was not a doubt in my mind that I was going to win that match. My hand was going to go up. I mean, I was shocked, and I mean, sure, they went to the table and ragged on the official a little bit, but you know, it doesn't do any good. And you know, that's what that I was told afterwards. Yes, that, and I know, you know, I know those referees' name, but no need to say them. That yeah, that or not the but I know the referee and then the coaches that were there. But yeah, that and of course, Brand was being up. He was the coach of the year that year, and I was told, well, they just want to make him look good and get a higher placer there for him. But anyway, that's that story.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And you mentioned like you turned your head and that was it. That's what impresses me about what we have 47, 48 state champions in school history. Like all it takes is one little mishap and it's
Yeah.
over. And for us to have
Yeah.
that many state champions is just impressive to me
exactly.
because
You know, and I told you I was never going to reveal this story about getting pinned and looking at the cheerleaders, but when you did your interview with Hagen's, you know that Wally Hagen, same thing happened to him.
yeah.
And so when John and I are up there having a whiskey up at Canada fishing, we're telling stories and that come out. And so then I decided to tell mine, but so his future wife, and she was the state tournament queen, which they had at that time. And the tournament was held there at Clarion, right in the home gym. He was likewise kind of flirting over there, said his head was, you know, thinking about her. And then he got pinned and beat because of that. You know, he lapsed out.
Yeah. You can laugh at it now, but at the time, it probably wasn't as funny.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's move on to your senior year, which happens to be Dave's freshman year. So you guys got 1 year together in the gym, in the room together. Do you remember much about being in the room together? Did you? I mean, Dave, you were at a 105 that year. Cliff, you were at 145. So there was a 40-pound difference. But with brothers in the room, did De Leon ever be like, "You two, let's go," or was it strictly
no,
with
we wrestled all the time because we'd be the last one out of the practice room. You know, coach would say, "How let's go home. Get out of here and take a shower." You know, yeah, I wanted to practice moves and Dave wanted to learn, and we stayed and drilled and worked moves and wrestled, you know, the best that we could. The same that we did at home. We would do a lot of drilling and extra things. And so, yeah, we tried to definitely help both of us, but putting that extra effort in.
Yeah. And like, so practice is over. Coaches probably want to go home. It's been a long day teaching and coaching. Do they wait for you? Do they just say, lock the door behind you? What was kind of the.
I think they made us get out of there, before we could leave, but makes me think of a story when I was wrestling down at Drake University and come home on a weekend and wanted to go in there and practice and of course have Dave come with me as a workout partner. And one time, I know De Leon would let us in, but he wasn't around. Superintendent Runyon went to his place. He just gave us the master key. He said, "Yeah, you boys go on down there, no problem." You know, and the worst we did was go in the teacher's lounge and buy that 10-cent bottle of pop instead of 25 cents on machine, I think. And but yeah, they trust us. But yeah, we wanted to put extra time in.
Yeah. Can you imagine in 2024 the superintendent giving a kid a key to the school and saying, "Have at it"?
That master key got you into every place.
Oh, geez.
That's what they
Yeah.
had then.
I don't think that would fly today. So
Well, and I want to add to that. So, and also one of the janitors for the longest time while we were there, Cliff, was Chuck Dewey, who
Right.
wrestled. I think he was state runner-up, if I remember right. And anyway, he loved wrestling and he would do anything for his wrestlers. He let us in a few mornings to lose weight and work out. And but that De Leon thing, I remember you come back from Drake and I would have been then a sophomore, junior. And De Leon, literally, his famous line would say, "Don't you guys have a home? Yeah, don't you have a home?" And we even were wrestling on Christmas Eve. And I just told his coach, we'll lock up when we go. Just leave the door ajar. We'll pull it loose because we got to get to church service too. And but we just wanted to keep getting better, and we were a little bit closer to size then, and so we just love getting extra workouts in.
Yeah. Was Blondie Sheets a janitor when you guys were there still, or was he gone? Do you remember Blondie?
No, I don't.
I don't.
Okay. I read a lot about him in the late 50s,
Yeah.
early 60s, so I didn't know if he had still been there kind of when Cliff got there. He was a custodian and a big supporter of the wrestling program. And I was reading some stuff that he always did similar type stuff for the wrestlers. So I didn't know if it was at the tail end when you guys got there or not. So freshman year for Dave, senior year for Cliff.
Could I throw a couple more things in before we transition here? I had some notes that I lost somewhere. I had a real busy day, and so, but I wanted to mention, when we were seniors, we took a whole lot of kids down to state and did real well. And, teammates, Dan Callstorf, should have been a state champion in my eyes. I mean, it was undefeated state district tournament. Dan was strong. He milked cows and he picked the kid up with a double leg up, had the kid up over his head and put him down a little bit too hard, I guess. Questionable. The referee called a slam. The kid faked an injury. The coach come over, not lay down, because, he wasn't going to, that kid was not going to advance and get anywhere. So anyway, Dan did not get to advance on to state. And that was always heartbreaking to see one of my classmates. And then I know everybody knows Billy Dahlman's story, behind the Hagen boys and Stevenson and could never break in the varsity, but boys, he done a lot around the program, all through the years, and finally got inducted into the Iowa Hall of Fame and well-deserved. And, Billy, once he quit milking cows about 10 years ago, he's been my travel mate going to the National Wrestling Tournament every year, something Dave and I have done going back way a long time. Actually, my first one was back in 1970. Coach De Leon and Meyer took us state champions that he had on board at that time. Myself, Jeff Stevenson, John Hagen, Dwayne Don, and we had a pickup and back of a camper that Floyd Charbonneau let us use. Coaches were in front and his kids were in the back, and off to Northwestern University of Chicago we went. We stayed in the attic of Bob Steenlich's house. Of course, our 4-time state champion and friend today. And Bob was in the Army, I think, still at that time. Apparently was based there. But anyway, we got to see that first national tournament. And, one of the highlights of my life, and certainly for wrestling, was got to see Dan Gable wrestle that tournament. And of course, unfortunately, see him lose that last match. And oh yeah, I was just talking to somebody yesterday and he asked me about that match. And he says, well, Gable wasn't ready to go. And I said, yeah, I was in the top bleacher and right below me was Dan Gable trying to warm up. And I'd seen him wrestle down at Iowa State several times and he would always get into his trance, you know, and in his routine. And I was saying to the other guys, they had a microphone in his face the whole time, even right when he stepped up onto the mat. I said, they won't even let him warm up. You know, he got out there, he got behind, and we all know he lost there that Larry Owens by a couple points. But, you know, Gable never wanted to make excuses, but he said years later, you know, his head was not in it. He, you know, he wasn't ready and he just could not, you know, catch up. Mentally, he was off. But that was a great experience that I wanted to, you know, say that one of the things that, you know, De Leon did for us. And I'll, or maybe come back and I'll tell a couple more De Leon stories and let you go with Dave here. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, freshman year, Dave, senior year, Cliff, you both won sectional titles. At districts, Cliff won a district title. Dave took second. And then the state tournament that year was in Ames. Again, not every year did Des Moines have it like we're used to now. It moved around a little bit. You guys took home the third state title in school history. 1961, 1962 were the first teams to win it, as your shirts show. And then 71 was title number 3. Dwayne Dawn lost in the first round at 132 pounds. John Hagen won another state title, 6-0, 8-0, 6-2. Dave, you at state. Let me go to the other guys first, actually. Richie Nelson was a state runner-up. He was a 3-time runner-up. He lost 2-0 in the finals. Jeff Stevenson, gotta turn the page here. He won a state title, 6-4 in the finals. Paul Swenson lost in the finals, 5-4. Dave, as a freshman at 105 pounds, you won your first round match, 4-1 against Kevin Griffin from Gilmore City Bradgate. And then you lost a 5-4 decision to Murray Fenn from Carson, Macedonia. And then you bounced back to take third, beat Paul Johnson from Norwalk 3-0. Cliff, you redeemed yourself. State champ as a sophomore, 4th as a junior, got a state championship as a senior. You beat Jeff Reinholtz of Manson in 356. You had a 7-0 win against Roger Redenbaugh of Tri-Center. And then in the championship match, your last match in high school, you won a 4-0 decision from Tyrone Kruger of George before they combined with Little Rock. Talk about your experience at state. Dave, your first. Cliff, your last one.
Well, I knew it was going to be a exciting, great year, and I wanted to see my brother win his second title, and I was hoping to make it in the finals with him. Knew it wouldn't be an easy task. Just to let you know how competitive it was just to make the team, you know, so you got all these state wrestlers, the champions and place winners that you got to compete with. It makes the room tough. It makes you better. And I didn't make the team until probably about a month and a half in the season. Steve Dummett was the representative at my weight in the early going. And we had to try out, and I didn't want to lose. I wanted to make that team. That was tough. And that was about the only time I swore in the wrestling room. And when I got beat, I got a little mad, so I had to go out in the locker room to cool off. And then I think I saw Cliff a few minutes later. It says, next time we try out, it's not going to happen. And I think when we went best out of a 3 to determine the rest of the year, a few weeks later, I won by a fairly good margin. But that's how it started off. And then you had all these good guys above you and below you. You couldn't help but get better. At the state tournament, I was pretty fired up and I was confident. And in the semis, Murray Finn and our photographer, Mr. Friesman, I think his first name was Will Friesman. Anyway, he was so awesome. He was like maybe a business teacher, something, and he took photos, just volunteered his time, and just loved watching Britt wrestling and all the sports. But he had photos that he gave me, and it showed, one of them showed a picture of me coming around reversal and late in the match. And literally, it looked like I had the takedown. I was hooked over the ankle, and I was around outside the thigh. And usually, I refereed for 27 years. I didn't mention that when I got out of teaching or out of coaching. I still taught, but I refereed for 27 years. And occasionally I get that picture out and I'll see it and go, why isn't that two? and anyway, so I thought, darn. But you know, it is what it is. You know, you can't make the calls on that. But it was just that close. I would have been in the finals. You know, I don't know if I would have won it or not, but I wanted to be there with my brother and John Hagen and who was the other? Dwayne Dawn, I believe, or no, I guess he didn't make the finals that year. But anyway, it was a great experience, and I'm glad I got third, and that was the foundation I needed, and I got to be a part of a great team and a first state championship in quite a few years. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cliff, how about you? You got title number 2, finished off on the right note, and then you're off to Drake. Talk about winning the title, another title.
Yeah. Well, it was basically a cakewalk for me when I was a senior. I was undefeated, and I did get a little sloppy at districts. I know coach had to get on me a little bit. I was maybe getting a little cocky, and anyways, but state tournament was really no easy. Actually, I thought in the finals, I thought I pinned that guy, but I know I handled him quite well. It was kind of interesting. Dave's wife, Pat, knew that wrestler and had commented that he was from Northwest Iowa, and Pat was from across the border at Adrian, Minnesota, and you know he was quite a stud from up around that area, and I beat him quite handily, and I thought I pinned him with a cradle, but anyway, yeah, that was you know a fun season, and fun to see us win that state title, and it was so cool to see Dave, you know, get on that varsity and get that third place spot. Yeah, I remember that move, Dave. Yeah, you were so doggone close to having that and making it in there. And when we get to your other years, I'll throw a comment in on a situation like that too. So yeah, that wrapped up the season. Kind of hated to see it end because we sure had fun in high school with the wrestling and the success we had.
I just got to say something. Your memories are phenomenal. If I asked you what you had for lunch yesterday, you're probably not telling me what you had for lunch. But 50 years ago, on this move, on this exact match, it just blows my mind doing this podcast with so many people. Like the details that are still just ingrained in your head.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to throw in there when Dave talked about he was a senior wrestling at Mankato State, and the Nationals were there at Cedar Falls, and if he would have won that match, he would have got, you know, at least what, 6 then. Yeah.
6, yeah, at least.
Yeah. And so as I recall, Dave, you were ahead, you were riding, and you tried to put a chicken wing and turn him over.
Yeah, I was riding the heck out of him, Cliff. And
you tried to turn him over, you didn't have to, and then he was able to go to first. Apparently the pressure wasn't there. It was so funky. How'd that ever happen?
I know
it. That was heartbreaking. Yeah.
I still shake my head. I know that was, you know, those are one things I still dream about, think about.
Yeah.
And then losing in my season year when I was undefeated, ranked number 1, and in Gable and Kurmeyer, where I had them on there. They had me on their top 10 list, and Jeff Stevens says, "Oh yeah, we want you badly." And had a Christmas card from Dan Gable signed. I still have it down in my basement, kind of my man cave area. And I thought, oh boy, I'm on top of the world, you know. But I'll get into that, you know, senior year in state later, but district and state. But you know, that I was on top of the world. Things are going great, and you know, maybe a little bit of pressure got to me. And Gable and Kurmeyer were in the stands during that district tournament, my first loss in the year at Humboldt, standing room only. Just amazing crowds we'd have in the 70s, you guys. Just amazing. And so the crowd's going crazy, and I'm jumping ahead here, but I think I'll just finish this part. Jumping ahead, in that year, I got beat when I was undefeated to try to get another state title. Oh, shoot. Yeah, Gable and Kurmeyer were in the stands, standing room only. We weren't having a very good district tournament, people were dropping like flies, even our top guns. I think Mark Stevenson, was he the only one that got, or I think he might have got second too. But anyway, it was a tough tournament, and to get some of the best wrestlers. And I think out of that district, there was 8. I just talked to Brent the other day about this. I think there might have been 8 state champs that came out of that district. That's how tough it was in 12 weights. So, but yeah, I'm like Cliff, like Spencer Lee would say, excuses for wusses. I got a little bit of excuse, but I'm hesitant to share it. Maybe I'll share it later because I'm jumping ahead on the progression of the years. But yeah, it's just, you don't forget those matches. So
No,
but
I
I had a lot
don't
of fun.
remember people I beat as a rule, but yeah, the few losses, yeah, those hurt. You remember those
Yeah.
people.
That's the theme of this podcast for almost 4 or 5 years now is we talk more about the losses than we do the wins sometimes because the losses are fewer than the wins are. And then you've made a good point. I've talked to several people and researching and stuff. Like we have 47 state champs. We probably could have had a whole lot more, or at least a lot more state qualifiers, state place winners, but sometimes just getting out of the North Central Iowa district was harder than state because
Exactly.
there were 4 or 5
You know,
phenomenal kids in one weight class, and some would just get left out. That's just
exactly right. You're exactly right. There's a lot of good wrestlers that stayed home because it's such a tough district.
yeah. So you look at our
Dave said how
history,
tough
it's been better.
how tough tryouts were. When I was a senior, we had 67 kids out for wrestling.
Yeah.
67. I mean, we were 8, 9 deep, in my weights, in some of the middle weights. And I mean, we had full ABC squads. We had a dual meet. It was the last over 4 hours. We had all 3 squads wrestling. Yeah.
And do you think our B or C squad could have been a solid varsity team? I mean,
absolutely.
Yes, I agree. And Cliff mentioned about tryouts earlier, and I got to share you again. This might be jumping 1 year progression, but so the better wrestlers want to pick and choose their weight, and they have their sights on a certain weight. We don't want to cut our leg off to make weight, and we don't want to be undersized to have that edge. We want to be where we want to be. Well, we were so talented, De Leon would hire a licensed official, a neutral licensed official. We put the mat out in the gym. Remember this, Cliff? And we'd go best out of 3 if we need to. And we'd have a bracket, maybe the first match or 2, 1 match, but got best out of 3. And this is how competitive it was. So both Mark Stevenson and myself wanted to wrestle at 126 my junior year. And, so we were both runner-ups the year before. Okay. And he was 112, I was 119. We both wanted to go 26, thinking that was our best weight. Well, we went best out of 3, and that was going into my junior year. And after getting 3rd and 2nd, I just set my goals on it, and a lot of those extra workouts with my brother Cliff and watching anything I could and studying up. I want this spot, and and I saw those plaques on the wall and run those bleachers and doing all that work and going out for all these sports to stay in shape. I wanted to be a champion. Well, to do it, I had to get through Mark Stevenson. And so we went best out of 3, and I beat him. And I remember Mark coming and says, "Holy cow, you're really taking this seriously. You dang right I am. I want this spot." And so he said, "Well, I'm not going to cut down to 19." So he cut down to 19, and we both won state and that year. And then my senior year, he says, "I'm not going to cut down." He went to 38 and I went to 32. So, and it all worked out because he was a 3-timer, but we both got our dreams there. And it's just amazing though, the competition within the room. And I want to mention again about Bill Dahlman, because he's a buddy of mine. And I've been to 47 NCAA Division I national championships. I go every year. It's like Christmas in March. And Cliff's been to quite a few, maybe not quite as many. And I have a good friend, Blaine Nelson from Waseca, Minnesota, who goes with us, and a few others. Brother Kurt will go once in a while. Anyway, we take it so seriously. We kind of joke about it, but things happen. We're getting older, and Cliff and I have a little written pact that says, Cliff's going to laugh at this. And if something happens to one of us, there's no dying in wrestling. If something happens right before, during, or right after, just put us on ice. And we'll take care of the final arrangements after the tournament. That may sound a little morbid, but that's how much we love going to NCAA wrestling tournaments. But I'm sure we maybe have a change of heart if it happened, but hopefully there's no dying during wrestling.
Let's
Cliff,
stick to
Cliff
that,
says
brother.
no.
Amen.
Yep. That did not take Cliff more than a millisecond to say, nope, wrestling first, buddy. So,
Good
Dave,
luck.
your sophomore year, you got close to that dream of winning a state title. You were runner up here. Let me run through your teammates here en route to the team title. Steve Dummett got third. Bruce Gakin won a state title. Brent Hagen won a state title. Dale Miller, I don't think placed, but he won a match and lost two. Richie Nelson lost in the finals again. Mark Nelson lost in the first round, but won two consolation matches. Mark Stevenson lost in the finals, and Jeff Stevenson won a state championship. And then you're losing posters.
No losing posters. That's right.
Ah,
They're training like a madman. It's the Brands brothers behind me. They're training.
I'll stall here for a second. In the first round, you won a 2-1 decision over Steve Dykey from Plainfield. And then in the semifinals, you won another 1-point match, a 3-2 win over Tom Hinchberger of Belle Plaine. And then in the finals, you lost a 5-2 decision to Mike McGivern from Iowa Valley Marengo. Did you have some chances to win that finals match? Did he get up on you, and how'd that go?
All right. Well, I do remember Steve Dykey was a heck of a tough match, and he ended up being the state champ the following year in a different class. So probably class 1A, because we moved up. Anyway, so he was a good wrestler. And then Mike McGivern, I hate to say it, but I think I only scored maybe a couple of escapes. He was pretty dominant on me. I was prepared. I was confident, but he had my number that day. Maybe we could wrestle another time. It'd be different, but nope, he beat me. And he went on to be an All-American under Coach Gable at Iowa, Kurtemeyer in Iowa, I guess, at the time. And so I guess when you find out you're some of that good, it eased the pain a little bit. But yeah, I still had my sights on that state title. And you know what? I thought third, second, first, natural progression is going to happen. And that's what I kept telling myself. It's going to happen.
Yep, and it did, because as a junior, you won a state title, 1973. Cool note, though, that was the first ever North Iowa Conference tournament in 1973. Prior to that, you just went to duels, and they didn't really crown a champion. Took second at sectionals, won the district title, and then the team won a third straight state championship. As you can see on the shirt there, that was the fifth team title. But again, we always go back to this. Who beat you at sectionals? We all these wins, but then it's like,
yeah.
That
one.
Well,
Was it? I think it was Denny Hansen, wasn't it? That beat me as a freshman from Algona.
Yep, Denny Hansen from Algona, 3-2. Yep.
Okay, all right, yeah, and but I came back in the wrestle back, okay. And then in districts, probably my old nemesis, Mike Woodall, I'm assuming. It might have been in overtime.
Yep, lost to Mike Woodall of Eagle Grove in the finals, but you didn't have to wrestle back at that point.
Okay. Yeah, he beat me at least 3, maybe 4 times, and kind of like Cliff and Paulson and those guys, I kept running into him because of that dual meets, Eagle Grove tournament, districts usually. So I think he beat me 3 times, maybe even 4. And then I got his number by 1-0 in the state final. So I was pretty excited during that too, Dan. I was just so fired up, gun ho. And I got my there's no score. And so I'm on top at the last period. And I was a good rider. And I still can't believe he was able to ride me out, because I usually don't get ridden. That's a rarity that someone can ride me out. But anyway, there was probably about 30-40 seconds left. He had a warning earlier, and I think that was maybe from hanging on when I was being up and going out of bounds, trying to peel the hands to get away. And then the second warning came for about 30-40 seconds left. I was riding the heck out of him. I had his nose in the mat, his belly's on the mat, and any ref could not justify giving me that stall call. And he did. And so I just continued to ride him, and I won 1-0 on a penalty for the stall call. So, and I remember jumping up into De Leon's arms afterwards. And I was one excited wrestler.
I just think it's neat. You didn't win a sectional title. You did not win a district title, but you won a state title. That's a cool story. Similar to last football season, we got second in our district, but won a state title at the end of the year. It's all about how you finish and not
Exactly.
maybe what happens throughout. It's just a matter of, I think that was a staple. And I'm obviously speaking from just talking to people in my research, staple of Al De Leon's teams. He had a progression to get guys ready to compete at their best at the state tournament. And that's when guys always seem to wrestle at their best. And you talked about earlier, whatever record that wasn't real shiny, but when it was go time, it was go time. So you guys knew what you were doing at the right time. So
yeah, you're exactly right, Dan. The dual meet record wasn't always the best, but Al always said, and a lot of college coaches will say that too. I mean, they all want to win duels, and it's fun for the fans, and you're disappointed to lose no matter when and where it is. But the bottom line is how you perform for the postseason. And you got to get through the section district, get to state. You can have a few losses. And I can't remember what my record for sure was my junior year, but I think I might have had probably 6 losses. And, half of them were to Mike Woodall, where I ended up beating the final. So that's where you want to shine. And De Leon had a way of peaking us at the right time. And I was confident. And I think my brother Cliff was kind of on Matt's side with Drake University. I think you guys helped along the mats. So I think you were near the mat when I won that too, Cliff. I remember, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I've down there a couple of years. We were mat boys or towel boys or something, but right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Dave, I was thinking about the years, and I kind of forgot I was going to say his comment. You're talking about that move. And yeah, because that didn't happen. Yeah, you got second. Next year you got, it was one of those years, or maybe it was on that move. I kept yelling at you, so I must have been at Drake then, to put the figure 4 and put the leg in, and you would have had 2 for the takedown, and you'd been in the finals.
That would have been my. Well, yeah, that's when I lost to Murray Finn. So you must have just been watching nearby, because
I must have been able to get right down on the mat because I kept yelling that to you, and you look at me like, well, I don't understand.
That was my freshman year. So that was my freshman year.
It had to be your freshman year. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
No, yeah.
Another impressive thing, Dave, you only gave up 1 point in 4 matches. And that was in the first round. You won 4-1, then you won 5-0, 3-0, 1-0. So only give up 1 point in 4 matches is impressive. Let's move on to your senior year here. Your state champion coming into your senior year. You guys are the 3-time defending state champions as a team. Life is pretty good at this point. But as a high school kid, sometimes, you can get trapped into a sense of we're so good, nothing's going to happen to us. How did Coach De Leon, Coach Meyer keep you guys grounded to have another successful season? Because you know how it goes with high school kids. You guys are both teachers and coaches.
Exactly.
It's a 16, 17-year-old kid that they're not on top of the world sometimes is a tough thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. I would have been 17 at the time. And we had an awesome team. We were favorites. And I remember, I don't know, we weren't overly confident, but at the same time, you're a little puffed up, thinking, okay, we've done this. We're favored to do it again. So maybe let your guard down a little bit. But I kept working hard, and football really fired us up. The only drawback, it delayed us. We missed 2 weeks of practice, and our first competition was the Eagle Grove tournament. So I think we missed at least 1 or 2 duels that anyone in football couldn't participate in.
Yeah.
But I won the Eagle Grove tournament, so I was feeling fine. I remember Lois De Leon says, Dave Howlett looks really good of a lot of the football players. And I remember, I think Mark Stevenson got upset at the Eagle Grove tournament by a very good wrestler. And but he came back to win it, of course. He kept reminding us, keep keep focused. And we had pretty cheerleaders too, Cliff. But I tried not to date them until after the season for prom or something, homecoming or prom during town wrestling season. But we had very good looking girlfriends and cheerleaders, and you know, all my sisters were involved in wrestling, cheerleading, and so on. And my wife has, she's the only girl. She has 7 brothers. They were all wrestlers.
Jeez.
And all 7 of the brothers married either wrestling managers or statisticians. So that's how deep it runs in the family. And so when I got basically interviewed, when I was meeting my wife and meeting her family the first time, they had to make sure I checked out, not only as a gentleman and going to treat their sister well, but that, okay, if this guy's really for real on the wrestling mat. But we
don't
had
need
some
a
fun with that.
They're joining the family, that's for sure. Yeah.
That's right. But no, it was a little bit of a challenge. I think for me, my senior year, everything is going great. I was on top of the world. You know, just think what it is now on social media. I can only imagine. But we got letters, and I was getting a lot of letters in the mail, placing 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and then undefeated as a senior, and being recruited by the big schools. It was starting to drain me a little bit, possibly. And I was brushing up your book a little bit, Dan, about my senior year and those last few duels before sectionals and districts. And we hosted our first quad tournament, I believe, and we went 0-3 as a team. Does that sound correct?
Wow.
In that quadrangle? I think we went 0-3.
I don't know, but
anyway, but and I remember I never missed a meet. If I was on varsity, I never missed a meet. I won my first duels, and I told Coach Dale, says, I'm just wiped. I'm just not feeling great. I need to sit this one out. And I think it was Charles City. We had Charles City, Mason City, and maybe Clear Lake. And but for that last duel, there were 7 varsity guys out with the flu. All right. And then we had another dual meet with Clear Lake to break in the brand new wrestling mat. And Coach De Leon took advantage of the NCAA Division I tournament. You could get a discounted mat from Resolite to save a couple $1,000, which was huge back then. And so we got to break in the brand new mat. It was a 42 by 42, and it had the eagle on top of it. And I probably shouldn't have been wrestling that, but I did. I was not feeling well at all. And so I went into sectionals. I already made it out of sectionals. And it wasn't because I wasn't prepared, worked hard. I had all the technique. My weight was in check. I was just drained. And I should have stayed home and rest those few days before and missed that last home meet. But I only got by Mike Bird 2-1. I was behind on down, and I reversed him with 16 seconds left. And I was so tired. Usually I just got all kinds of, I was so tired after I shook hands with him, and we had multiple guys wrestling another mat. So I was basically going to the coach's corner and getting my warm up, and I literally just fell on the chair. And I got up, grabbed my stuff. Coach Neil Boyd from Waldorf, where Jim Dummett won a national title, he was recruiting me. He says, "Wow, what a match! That took guts to come back to win that." Well, I was just like exhausted. What's going on? And I lost a little confidence then, and I was weak, and I was trying to keep my weight down, and it kind of filtered beyond that. But I don't know if you're ready for me to talk about what happened beyond that in state. But
yeah, well, I was just going to say, you won your sectional title as a senior, but not a district title. You Howletts like to keep it interesting at districts. Always making people wonder, are they going to get it done? They got to get out of districts. But yeah, you got second at districts, made it to state. As a team, you guys got state runner-up. So again, like we talked about, 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. Just a crazy good run there. Brent Hagen lost in the finals at 112 pounds. Richie Nelson lost in the finals at 119. Mark Stevenson won another state title, and then you lost in the first round to Gary Wood of Centerville, 7-3. And then you bounced back to win a couple consolation matches against Vern Avent of Sadell, 2-0 in overtime. and then a 2-0 win against Scott Wood of Crescent to round out your high school career. So talk about state. What was it like not getting that second title?
All right. Yeah. Well, just backing a slight step. So I was undefeated. My first loss of the year with Gable and Kurtmeyer in the stands, standing room only at the Humboldt gym. It was quite the amazing experience. I was confident, but for some reason, I wasn't my usual self. I just felt a little bit drained. I don't know if it was physical or mental. Could have been a little more just feeling the pressure. I don't know. So I mentioned early in the podcast, the first time I got pinned in my life prior to that was the last dual meet against Hampton in the home gym with my heroes, my peers, older athletes watching on. All right. I didn't want that to happen again, but it did. So I'm ahead in the match. This last period, I go down, and usually I'm like Cliff, I can get away from anybody. And I was just dragging. I was hanging my head. I never had my head down. And I wasn't watching cheerleaders. I was focused, but it's like, geez, I'm just feeling weak and drained. And I can only imagine what Dan Gable felt against Larry Owings, or Spencer Lee against the Purdue kid, Matt Ramos, in the finals his senior year when he lost. But I was drained. And he was probably the second strongest wrestler I've ever wrestled in my life. He had a vice grip, his forearms and hands. He did a 3/4 Nelson on me. And if I didn't go, I probably would have, who knows what, broke my neck, or it was bad. It was like, oh, I couldn't stop it. And I was pinned like in flat, no time at all. He got that on me, and 4 seconds I was pinned. And I was fortunate just to get the wrestle back because I was in bad shape with my neck. I did. And I think I won 7-5 against Christensen in Eagle Grove. But that was a tough loss. And I saw Doc Peterson, Jeff Stevenson's father-in-law, would be Liz's and Julie's dad, the next on Sunday at the chiropractor office, again Monday and Tuesday after school. And I didn't wrestle and practice, just kind of rode bike and try to keep my weight down those 3 days before the state. And the way it worked out, even though I should have been considered one of the top 3 wrestlers, I ended up getting the undefeated kid, Gary Wood from Centerville, first round, because they don't see him, they're just drawn. And he's the one that got 5th my weight the year before. All right. But back then, if you get beat first round, the best you can get is 5th. Otherwise, I really felt I should have been a top 3 wrestler. But again, if I remember right, it was like a 2-1 match, and 2-1, 3-1, and I get an escape, and I shoot, and he hit a neck wrench, which Ron Meyer and my fellow officials said that's illegal, but he got a 5-point move on me, and then ended up, I think, getting a reversal to make it a little bit tighter, but ended up beating me. Can't remember what, 7-2, and that was the deciding factor, a 5-point move. But so yeah, to this day I'm having some neck issues, but you know what? That's okay. State title, 2nd, 3rd, 5th on 3 state champ teams, runner-up, the camaraderie, all of the fun athletes, and the trips, high school and college, because of the sport. I don't have no regrets. Yeah, the older you get, you deal with some elements, knee, neck, that type of thing. But it was worth it. And I love competing, and I love following wrestling now, especially my Hawkeyes and national tournament, go to Iowa State stuff also. But I love just following it. And a lot of thanks go out to Coach De Leon, Meyer, Rummy Macius, and my classmates, that I can continue to just love and honor the sport of wrestling that's so dear to me. And my whole family, my wife's family, follow it. And it's just been a great part of our life. It's just a way of life.
So Dave, you're a 4-time state qualifier. Do you know how many of those, or a 4-time state place winner? Do you know how many of those we have in school history?
No, I do not.
Not very many. You got Bob Steenledge, you got the Stevenson brothers, you have
Hagens.
Yeah, the Hagens, but then after that, there's Gunnar Clark, Pat Kelly, Kellen Smith. There's really it's a very small group of guys that have qualified for 4 state tournaments. It's a very elite group. And Cliff, what can you say about Dave's career as we're kind of wrapping things up here?
Well, yeah, it was awful fun to watch him. Of course, it made me nervous and everything, but I was very proud of him. And I have to say, he had to learn to be tough as a youngster, or I'd beat up on him too much, and he he turned out to be pretty darn good. And yeah, it was fun for him to be on state football and track teams in addition to wrestling, that's for sure. Yeah, envious of that. But I agree that the wrestling experience, high school and college and was fabulous. Yeah, I was thinking something I wanted to throw in there about that rival Russ Paulson that that beat me that twice then as a junior, as I explained. Well, the next year as a senior, the dual meet, it was at Britt. We were supposed to wrestle at 145. Well, their coach bumped him to 55. He didn't want to go. I was so hungry for revenge. And then in college, no, wait a minute, back up. So we graduate, and I can't remember, it's March or April of when I'm still in high school, I guess. And a snowstorm, we had no power, no school for a week. I got to town and stayed at De Leon's house all week. And he would go to practice up the high school there with me because I was training for a freestyle tournament down at Sheridan, Iowa. And I got to wrestle Russ Paulson, beat him there. And then next year, as a freshman, at Drake, regional tournament was out at Air Force Academy. And my dad flew out to watch that. And I beat Paulson out there. So I did set things right there, finally on that. I just want to put a shout out to Lois De Leon for all the support she gave the coach and all the things she did, kept stats and would cut our hair because we're illegal there, ready to step on the mat, and just numerous things, parties she had at her house after the season. Just fabulous. And shout out to current coach Sanger. I was fortunate. Farming here at Britt. I did step in 3 years and was a junior high wrestling coach. Oh, I don't remember, about 95 to 96, something like that. And I had, and Jim Nelson was my assistant there, but I had Mark Sanger both years as junior high and knew right then he was going to be a good one. And of course, turned out to be a state champion for us and has done a great job coaching there.
Yeah. We had some lean years after Coach De Leon retired.
Yeah.
And what Mark has done in the last dozen years is beyond admirable to get the program back up into those top 5 state finishes. He's done a great job. So, yeah, well, fellas, I think this is a good wrap-up place here. You talked a lot about stuff at the beginning. We're going to talk about at the end, just filling in all the gaps of what you've been doing. Thanks again to all my sponsors, 25 of them tonight. Again, shout out to my lifetime sponsors, Window World in Mason City, Levi Don Trucking, Doug and Kathy Zool, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Richard's Auto, and Triple B's Food Trucks. A couple weeks from now, I'm going to be doing the podcast with Jared Haxton, and then a couple Eccles cousins, Lisa Hiscox, and then a real fun one will be the 1984 Britt football team. 40 years of excellence. We're going to do kind of a tribute to the last 40 years of Eagle football. And then Dave Beach, a longtime teacher, is going to be my next episode after that. And then obviously playoff football. We've been doing those for a couple of years now, where we break down the playoff teams and the brackets and do some predictions and stuff like that. We'll be throwing that in there as well. So, fellas, anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap this up?
Just wanted to put a plug in that clip there about Lois De Leon, what she did for us wrestlers. I mean, she'd sew up uniforms and she'd help prepare the tacos with Al. I stayed at their house one night too because of a snowstorm from a freestyle meet. And it was between my junior and senior year at Anoka, Minnesota. And I beat Jack Eustace, who was a national champ, the weight below me at Mankato State. And we coached against each other at Blue Earth. When I was at Waseca, he was at Blue Earth. and we're both undefeated. It was for the conference dual meet championship. And I remember he hardly wanted to shake my hand. He was so upset. Brent Hagen knows him well. He's a competitor, but he didn't like to lose, like most of us don't. But anyway, Lois was just amazing. And just really appreciate her and what she did to help Coach De Leon and all the wrestlers and the cooks. I think that was mentioned in your book. I mean, they provided special meals. It's not easy trying to lose weight. And we'd make weight. They'd have a good special lunch for us wrestlers. So a lot went into it. Thank you for the community. And Dan, thank you for all you do. Boy, the time you put into just like the notes to prepare for these and help with those trophies, rearrangement, the book, and just keep up the good work. Really proud of what all you do for Britt and West Hancock athletes. And go Eagles.
You bet. Cliff, anything you want to add?
Well, I just would ditto everything Dave just said, and yeah, thank you, Dan, for all you're doing here. This is great. It's fun to, ours got a little bit windy here. That's Brother Dave, So
The time goes fast,
anyway,
though,
thanks a
doesn't it?
lot for all you've done, and yeah, we'll catch you later. Yeah.
Yep. Time
thank
flies
you.
when
Go
you're doing this podcast. It's a good time. Go Eagles, and we'll see you hopefully Friday night at the Hall of Fame event.